Would I be the whole if I asked my grandfather to walk me down the aisle instead of my dad? 26F, am getting married this coming May. It should be the happiest time of my life, but instead, I've spent the last 3 months staring at my guest list and feeling a physical knot in my stomach every time I see the word father. I'm at a crossroads that feels like it's going to tear my family apart, and I honestly don't know if I'm being a rational bride or a vindictive daughter. To understand why I'm considering this, I have to go back to the beginning. I grew up in my mom's home country. My earliest memories aren't of lullabies or bedtime stories, they are of noise. My mom was angry, constantly. It felt like she was a live wire, and the slightest thing would set off hours of shouting. I remember hiding under my bed covers just trying to tune out the screaming matches that seemed to define our household. In all that chaos, my dad was my anchor. He was the one who would pick me up, take me for ice cream, and tell me everything was going to be okay. He showered me with the affection my mother seemed incapable of giving. She almost never hugged me. She never told me she was proud of me. It was my dad who held my hand through every scraped knee and every bad grade. When I was about 10, we moved to my dad's country. My parents said it was for a fresh start, and I was excited. I thought maybe the new scenery would fix whatever was broken in my mom. It didn't. The atmosphere at home remained suffocating. The shouting didn't stop. It just happened in a different language. Then when I was 15, the bottom dropped out. My dad sat me down and told me he was leaving. He said he couldn't continue anymore, that he was hollowed out by the constant conflict. I was devastated. Because he was paying for 2 separate homes, and his new place was tiny, I had to stay with my mom. It was the hardest year of my life. Being alone with her anger without my dad there to buffer it felt like being trapped in a storm without an umbrella. Even then, my dad stayed consistent. He saw me every weekend. He took me to dinner, he listened to me cry about school, and he promised me that as soon as he could afford a bigger place, I could live with him. He kept that promise. About a year later, I moved into his new house. I lived with him through the rest of high school and all through college. I wasn't an easy teenager. I fell in with a crowd that loved to party way too hard. There were nights I'd call him at 3 a.m. from a park or a stranger's house, terrified and drunk. He never yelled. He'd just drive out, pick me up, and make sure I was safe. He was my hero. If you had asked me back then who was walking me down the aisle, I would have said his name before you even finished the question. After I graduated college, I decided to move back to my mom's country. I wanted a change of pace, and I missed my maternal grandparents. I've always been incredibly close to them, especially my grandfather. He is the patriarch of the family, steady, traditional, and incredibly kind. Living near my grandparents changed everything. One evening, about 2 years ago, I was sitting in the kitchen with my grandmother. We were talking about the past, and she let slip the real reason we had moved away from this country when I was 10. My dad had cheated. He hadn't just made a mistake. He had a full-blown affair with a woman in our home city. My mom didn't move us to his country for a fresh start. She moved us to get him as far away from that woman as possible. She was trying to save her marriage, and he had dragged us across the world while harboring a secret that would eventually destroy us anyway. Everything clicked. My mom's anger, her bitterness, her inability to show affection. It didn't excuse it, but it explained it. She had been betrayed in the most fundamental way and forced to live in a foreign country where she had no support system, all while trying to keep a smile on for me. The divorce was finalized about 10 years ago. Not long after I moved back here, I found out that my dad had reconnected with his affair partner. She moved to his country a few years ago, and they got married. He's living the happily ever after with the woman who was the catalyst for my childhood being a war zone. Since learning the truth, my relationship with my dad has crumbled. He still tries. He calls, he texts, he asks how the wedding planning is going. But I find it hard to even look at my phone when his name pops up. I feel a deep sense of guilt for how I treated my mom. I spent years blaming her for being the mean parent, while he was the fun parent because he didn't have to carry the weight of his own lies. I feel sorry for her now. She's a broken woman, and he's the one who broke her. So now we come to the wedding. I've decided I want my grandfather to walk me down the aisle. He's been the one stable, honorable man in my life who hasn't betrayed his family. My dad hasn't done anything to me. He's still the same man who rescued me from parties, but I can't shake the feeling that having him walk me down the aisle would be a slap in my mother's face. I don't want negative energy on my day. I don't want my mom sitting in the front row, forced to watch the man who destroyed her happiness take the credit for giving me away. But I know this will be a public execution of my relationship with my dad. If I don't let him walk me, I'm essentially telling him he's not my father anymore. Would I be the whole? Last Sunday, I went over to my grandparents' house for dinner. My mom was there too. The air was thick with wedding talk. We were looking at lace samples and discussing the floral arrangements for the church. My grandfather was sitting in his usual armchair, nursing a glass of wine. He looked at me and asked, "Have you talked to your father about the travel arrangements for May?" I felt my throat tighten. "Not yet, Grandpa." My mom snorted from the kitchen. "He'll probably bring that woman and expect us all to play nice. I don't even know if I can sit in the same room as him." "Mom, please," I said, my voice shaking. "It's my wedding." "I know it is," she said, coming into the room. Her eyes were red. "And I'll be there. I'll smile. But every time I look at him, I remember why we had to leave our home. I remember what he did." I looked at my grandfather. He's 82 now, but he's still strong. He's the one who taught me how to garden, how to tell the truth, and how to respect myself. He saw the look on my face and reached out to pat my hand. "Whatever you decide, child," he whispered. "I am here." That's when I knew. I want him. I want the man who stayed. But the thought of the phone call I have to make to my dad is making me physically ill. I've been playing back all the times my dad was there for me. The time I failed my driving test, and he spent 4 hours practicing with me the next day. The time I had my heart broken in college, and he drove 3 hours just to bring me my favorite takeout. He has been a good father to me. But can someone be a good father if they were a terrible husband? Can I separate the two? If I choose my grandfather, I'm choosing a side in a war that was supposed to be over a decade ago. I'm telling my dad that his support over the years doesn't outweigh his betrayal of the family unit. But if I choose my dad, I'm telling my mom that her pain doesn't matter as much as my comfort. I'm telling her that the fun parent wins, even if he cheated. Update. I finally did it. I called my dad last night. I didn't want to do it over text. He deserved to hear my voice, even if I was terrified of what I had to say. "Hey, honey," he answered, sounding genuinely happy. "I was just looking at flight prices for May. I think I found a good deal." I took a deep breath.
"Dad, wait.
"We need to talk about the ceremony." The silence on the other end was immediate. He's not stupid. He's felt the distance I've put between us over the last 2 years. "I've put a lot of thought into this," I continued, my voice trembling. "And because I'm living back here now, and because Grandpa has been such a huge part of my life, I've asked him to walk me down the aisle." There was a long, heavy pause. I could hear him breathing. "I see," he said. His voice sounded flat, stripped of that usual warmth. "Is this because of what your grandmother told you?" I didn't lie.
Yes.
"It changed how I see things, Dad. I love you, and you've been there for me, but I can't ignore the truth anymore. Having you walk me down the aisle feels wrong, especially with Mom there." "So, 26 years of being your father is erased because of a mistake I made in my marriage?" he asked. He didn't sound angry. He sounded heartbroken. "I never let my personal life affect how I loved you. I picked you up every time you fell. I paid for your college. I was the one you ran to when your mother was screaming. Now I'm being cast aside for her." "You're not being cast aside," I cried. "I still want you at the wedding. But this is my choice. If your grandfather walks you, I'm not sure I can be there," he said quietly. "It's a public humiliation, honey. You're telling everyone I'm not your father." He hung up after that. Now, the guilt is overwhelming. My dad's sisters, my aunts, have started messaging me, telling me I'm being incredibly cruel. They say I'm punishing him for a sin he's already paid for through the divorce. They're calling me ungrateful. My mom, on the other hand, seems almost triumphant. When I told her, she hugged me, a real, genuine hug for the first time in months. But seeing her happy about my dad's pain makes me feel dirty. I went back to see my grandmother today. I needed to know if I was doing the right thing. "Grandma, did I just ruin my relationship with my dad forever?" I asked her as we sat on the porch. She looked at me with those wise, tired eyes. "You did what you felt was right for your heart. Your father is a man of many layers. He was a good father to you, yes. But he was a man who lacked honor when it counted most. Your grandfather, he is a man of honor." "But he said he won't come if he doesn't walk me," I whispered. "Then that is his choice," she said firmly. "If his pride is more important than watching his daughter marry the man she loves, then he is proving you right, isn't he?" I looked out at the garden. I want my grandfather's honor at my wedding. I want his stability. But I don't know if I can handle the empty chair where my father should be. I keep telling myself I want to avoid negative energy. But by making this choice, I've created a nuclear blast of it. My dad's side of the family is threatening to boycott. My mom is gloating. My fiancé is trying to stay neutral, but I can tell he's worried about the drama. Is a wedding about the past or the future? If it's about the past, my grandfather deserves the honor. If it's about the future, maybe I should be the one to bridge the gap and let my dad walk me. But then I think about my mom sitting there, watching the man who cheated on her, who is now married to the woman he cheated with, acting like the hero of the story. I don't think I can do that to her. I'm so confused. I love my dad. I really do. But I don't respect him anymore. And I don't know if you can have one without the other. Update 2. It's been a week of hell. My dad sent me an email, a long one. He didn't beg, but he listed out everything he's done for me. He reminded me of the nights he spent at the hospital when I had my appendix out. He reminded me of the time he worked extra shifts to buy me my first car. He ended it by saying, "I am not a perfect man. I failed your mother, and for that, I am sorry every day. But I never failed you. Please don't let her bitterness become yours." That sentence hit me like a physical blow. Don't let her bitterness become yours. Am I being bitter? Or am I being just? I sat down with my fiancé last night. He told me, "I will support whoever you want next to you. But remember, this isn't just about the walk. This is about the next 20 years. If your dad isn't there, will you regret it when we have our own kids? Will you regret it when he's gone?" I went to see my grandfather today. I told him I was having second thoughts. He looked at me and said, "I was honored that you asked me.
Truly.
But I am an old man.
I have had my time.
If you think your father belongs there, I will be just as happy sitting in the front row watching you both." That's the difference. My grandfather is willing to step aside for my happiness. My father is threatening to stay away if he doesn't get his way. I've decided to stick with my grandfather. I realized that my dad's email, while touching, was still all about him. His sacrifices, his efforts, his pride. He didn't once mention how my mom might feel. He didn't once acknowledge the pain he caused. He just wanted his reward for being a good dad. My grandfather's willingness to step back showed me what real love looks like. It's not a transaction. I sent a short reply to my dad. I told him that I love him and I want him there as a guest, but my grandfather is walking me. I told him that if he chooses not to come, I will be heartbroken, but I will respect his decision. I haven't heard back. My mom is helping me with the seating chart now. She's quiet, but there's a piece about her I haven't seen in years. I think, in a way, she feels seen for the first time. The fallout has been worse than I anticipated. 2 of my aunts and 3 of my cousins from my dad's side have officially RSVP'd no. They sent a joint message saying they can't support a wedding where my father is being publicly shamed. It hurts. These are people I've spent holidays with. But it also confirms that my dad has been playing the victim to them for years. They clearly don't know the full story, or they've chosen to ignore it because he's the good guy. My dad finally replied to my email. He said, "I won't be attending. It would be too painful to sit there and watch someone else take my place. I hope you have a beautiful day. I'll always love you." I cried for 3 hours when I read that. A part of me wanted to call him and scream, "Then just come as a guest. If you love me, just be there." But I didn't. Because I know that for him, it's not about me. It's about the image of him as the great dad. If he can't have the spotlight, he doesn't want to be in the theater. My mom saw me crying and didn't say, "I told you so." She just made me tea and sat with me in the silence. I think I've lost my father, but I've gained a mother, and I've kept my grandfather. Is it a fair trade? I don't know, but it's the reality I've been handed. Update 3. The first dress fitting after my dad declined to attend felt surreal. I stood on the pedestal, staring at my reflection while the seamstress pinned the hem. My mom sat in the little velvet chair by the mirror. For years, I associated wedding dress shopping with tension. I expected criticism, sharp comments, some underlying current of dissatisfaction. Instead, she just looked at me and smiled softly. "You look beautiful," she said. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't tearful. It was simple. And that simplicity nearly broke me. I realized then that for so much of my life, I had only measured love by how loudly it showed up. My dad's love was active, demonstrative, rescuing. My mom's love, buried under years of resentment and betrayal, had been quiet and often distorted by pain. I mistook volume for depth. After the fitting, we went for coffee. It was the first time we'd sat alone together without wedding logistics filling every gap in conversation. "I don't want you to feel like you chose me," she said carefully. "This isn't about winning." That word, winning, hit me hard. Because beneath all of this, it had started to feel like a scoreboard. My dad's side tallying sacrifices. My mom's side tallying wounds. Me stuck in the middle, holding the pencil. "I didn't choose you over him," I said. "I chose what felt right for me." She nodded, but I could see the relief in her eyes. For her, this wasn't about tradition. It was about acknowledgement. About someone finally recognizing that what happened to her mattered. Meanwhile, my grandfather handled everything with the same steady calm he always has. When we went to meet with the priest to finalize the ceremony details, he insisted on driving, even though my fiancé offered. "I can still manage a car," he said with a small smile. Watching him talk with the priest about timing and cues felt grounding. He didn't treat the walk as a trophy. He treated it as a responsibility. He asked questions about where to stand so he wouldn't block the photographer. He worried about walking too slowly and delaying the music. His focus was entirely on making sure I felt supported. There's something profoundly reassuring about someone who doesn't make your milestones about themselves. About 3 weeks after my dad's last email, I received a package in the mail. The return address was his. My hands shook opening it. Inside was a small velvet box and a handwritten note. The box contained a delicate gold bracelet. It wasn't flashy. It was understated, elegant. The note said he had bought it years ago when I was a teenager, imagining he would give it to me on my wedding day while we got ready together. He wrote that even if he wasn't there physically, he hoped I would wear it so a piece of me can still walk with you. I sat on my bed and cried harder than I had since this whole situation began. That gift complicated everything again. It wasn't manipulative. It wasn't angry. It was tender. For a brief moment, I considered calling him and telling him to come. Telling him I had changed my mind. Imagining him standing at the end of the aisle, not as the one escorting me, but just as my dad. But then I pictured the ceremony. I pictured him sitting there, knowing he had refused to attend unless he had the role he wanted. I pictured the unspoken tension in the room. I pictured myself wondering, even as I walked toward my fiancé, whether I had betrayed my own instincts just to avoid conflict. I realized something important. My decision had never been about punishment. It was about alignment, about stepping into marriage without unresolved resentment sitting in my chest. My fiancé has been my steady anchor through all of this. One night, when I was spiraling again, he said something that shifted my perspective. "You're not responsible for managing your parents' unfinished business," he said. "You're responsible for starting ours in a healthy way." That reframed everything. This wedding isn't a courtroom. It's not a referendum on who was right or wrong 20 years ago. It's the beginning of my own family. And I don't want to carry the pattern of silence and swallowed resentment into it. 2 weeks ago, my dad finally called. I almost didn't answer. But I did. His voice sounded older somehow. Tired. "I got your message about the final guest list," he said. "I've been thinking." I didn't interrupt. "I don't agree with your choice," he continued. "It hurts. But you're still my daughter. And if I stay away, that's something I'll regret for the rest of my life." I felt my breath catch. "I'll come," he said. "As your father. Not as the one walking you. I can't promise it won't sting. But I'll be there." Relief flooded through me so intensely I had to sit down. We didn't rehash the affair.
We didn't dissect the past.
For the first time, we spoke to each other as two adults acknowledging that love doesn't erase consequences. The day of the rehearsal dinner arrived faster than I expected. Seeing him walk into the restaurant was surreal. He looked nervous. Smaller somehow. My mom stiffened when she saw him, but she didn't leave. She didn't make a scene. They exchanged a polite nod. That was it. No explosion. No drama. Just two people who shared a history they can't undo. At the ceremony rehearsal, when we practiced the processional, my grandfather took my arm. His grip was warm and steady. My dad stood off to the side, watching. Not smiling widely. Not sulking. Just observing. For the first time, it didn't feel like a battlefield. The wedding day itself was calm in a way I hadn't thought possible months ago. When I put on the gold bracelet, my hands trembled. It felt like acknowledging both truths at once, that my dad loved me deeply, and that he had also broken something foundational in our family. When the music started and I stepped forward with my grandfather, I didn't feel defiant. I didn't feel vindictive. I felt grounded. Halfway down the aisle, I caught a glimpse of my dad in the front row. His eyes were red. He wasn't looking at my grandfather. He was looking at me. There was no anger in his expression, just emotion. And in that moment, I understood something that had taken me months to grasp. Honoring my grandfather didn't erase my father. It simply reflected the values I want to carry forward. After the ceremony, during the reception, my dad approached me quietly. "You look happy," he said. "I am," I replied. He hesitated before adding, "I'm proud of you. Not for the choice I made. Not for proving a point. Just proud." My mom danced with my grandfather during one of the slower songs. Later, she surprised me by asking my dad if he wanted to dance too.
It wasn't romantic.
It wasn't reconciliatory. It was two people acknowledging that their daughter's joy mattered more than their history. That image will stay with me longer than the aisle walk ever will. In the weeks since the wedding, the dust has settled. My relationship with my dad isn't magically restored to what it was when I was 15. It's different, more honest, less idolized. My relationship with my mom feels softer. Not perfect, but less defined by old anger. And my grandfather? He jokes that he's retiring from ceremonial duties. Wibda? I don't think so. I didn't make the choice to punish. I made it to reflect who I am now and what I value stepping into marriage. The truth is, there wasn't a pain-free option. Someone was going to hurt, maybe multiple people. But for the first time, I chose based on alignment instead of guilt. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Daily Tales Update for more such stories.